Okay, the purpose of this video is to talk about the Beatitudes, which are some things that Jesus said. And I will come at this largely from a secular perspective. I think I've experienced this myself, so I don't. It's very helpful to use this as a guide, but I kind of don't need it anymore for my own personal use because I know it. But anyway, the Beatitudes for ancient Christians were the most concise summary of a person's spiritual journey. And for them it was very religious in nature, but so far as I know, I'm not certain I've ever had any experience of God that can't be attributed to wishful thinking. So anyway, I'll just come at this from how I understand it. These are actually steps in spiritual growth. And I think I'll talk about the kingdom of heaven first. Christians in the West think that the kingdom of heaven is like heaven where you go after you die. They think it's a physical place that you go to, like how you can go to Australia if you buy a plane ticket. But the ticket to the kingdom of heaven for them is death. That's not how it is for me, or I think for the early Christians. Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven is within you. So if the kingdom of heaven is within you, it can't be some external place like Australia that you travel to. Actually, I believe for the first Christians, for those people, for the ancient Hebrews, everything every material fact also had symbolic meaning. In the West, we kind of have a clear division between symbolism and fact, but that wasn't so as I understand it, that wasn't so for the ancient Hebrews. For them, there was no clear division between symbolism and fact. There was a God who did things, so when he did something, it was a fact, but it also often represented something too. But anyway, that's kind of a big sidetrack. So yes, for the ancient Christians, I believe they thought of heaven as a place you go to after you die, while simultaneously being a state of being right now. That might not make much sense, but for me, it's mostly just a state of being, because I don't know anything about what happens after you die. But anyway, I'll just go through the steps. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. As I understand, poor in spirit basically just means you're humble. If you're rich in spirit, that means you have lots of reasons to feel good about yourself. I've talked in another video how humility is a very good thing, and that pride is kind of like a state of insanity that most people are in. It's called Why Everybody is Crazy. I think I'll go over it again briefly now in case you haven't seen that video. Yes, the main virtue for Christians is humility, and it means not inventing reasons all the time to feel good about yourself. Simply not doing that is already enough to be humble. And blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Mourning means you let go of something that's important to you. In most cases, it means you mourn over a dead family member. It's also possible to mourn, however, over your own foolishness and mistakes. To mourn that you're not as special as you thought you were, or perfect or something. And it's step number 2 because it is totally impossible to mourn over your mistakes while you are in a state of mind where you try to look for reasons to think that you're special. You have to realize that you're not special, you don't have anything important, you're just a bag of meat, and you're going to die just like everyone else. When you do that, then it's possible for you to accurately see your own faults and mourn over them. And then, I don't know why this is, but somehow it is true that you will be comforted when you mourn. Maybe you just don't care anymore about your faults, you just realize that they're a fact. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. As I understand it, meekness is, it's definitely not weakness. It's a psychological willingness to be hurt, to suffer. It doesn't mean that you want to be hurt, that's masochism, but it means that when you are hurt, you can accept it. And that's the next step, because while you think that you're special, or you don't acknowledge your wrongs, it's very difficult for you to accept that bad things happen to you. Yeah, if you think you're a special person in the universe, and that you never do anything wrong, then you're never going to be meek. You're never going to calmly accept that bad things happen to you. So like most people, when something happens that they don't like, they cry and moan and everyone knows about it. A meek person, he'll just be like, his psychology, what happens in his mind when something happens he doesn't like, it's just, oh well, something happened I didn't like. And he treats it the same as like rain falling or like other things that aren't very important. And the next step after meekness is, blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness. And it is impossible to genuinely hunger and thirst after righteousness until you are willing to be meek. Because the idea of righteousness is that you do what is right rather than what is easy. Most people are very self-righteous. That means they don't actually want to be righteous. They want to feel good about themselves. So their righteousness is just another way of feeling good about themselves. But it is totally impossible to actually genuinely care about righteousness. This should not be numbered. Unless you can't genuinely care about righteousness unless you're willing to inconvenience and hurt yourself. And then the next step is to be merciful. When you really want to do what's right, and you realize that you're not perfect and you're wrong, that makes you think that you have to forgive other people too, because you can't condemn other people without condemning yourself. And that just mercy is a good thing. So that when you really genuinely want to do what's right, then you can sincerely and genuinely from your heart forgive other people for hurting you. And that's merciful. And you cannot be pure in heart until you have learned to genuinely forgive people from the bottom of your heart, because pure in heart means that everything in your heart is consistent and it's pure, just like in chemistry, like a pure substance is 100% the same thing. Well, your heart isn't made of a substance, at least not the heart we're talking about here. But what do I want to say? Yes, if you have all kind of hurt and negative feelings, then that means there's going to be chaos in your heart, and but you can't have peaceful, good feelings in your heart all the way through and through until you're willing to let go of the pain in your heart. Just accept that the pain happened and I don't need to hold on to it anymore. That means you forgive people, and that's when you are pure in heart. And then you can't make peace with yourself or with other people until you are pure in heart, because the first step is making peace in yourself. Having a pure heart basically is what it means to make peace with yourself. Basically, the best sign of being humble is to have a peaceful heart, at least in the long run. At the beginning, when you start to become humble, it rather hurts because you have to humiliate yourself. But after that process, when you have a feeling of peace, if it creates a feeling of peace, then that indicates that you've done it correctly. And when you have peace in your own heart, then you can begin to make peace with other people. Because so long as you have negative hurt feelings in your own heart, it's going to be very difficult to make peace with other people, because you have those negative feelings in your heart. So it's going to be a struggle to stop those negative, hurtful things from coming out of your mouth. When you actually genuinely have a peaceful heart, then it is not difficult to deal with people who are trying to hurt you, or who you perceive or might perceive are trying to hurt you. And the last step is, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And I've not experienced this step yet. So far as I know, I've never been persecuted for righteousness. As I understand it, most people are rather envious and wicked, and they've not most of them haven't even started this process, and they don't like to see that other people are nicer or better than them. So when they see someone who's very virtuous, they try to destroy him. That's a very common reaction. So far as I know, I have not achieved that level of holiness yet. I'm pretty sure I'm on step 7. And the way I see it, this is like a pyramid. So you have to have a very strong base in humility in order to do much mourning, and you can't have more mourning than you have humility, and you can't have more meekness than you have mourning. So you have to level up all the lower levels before you can get to the higher level. And so far as I know, like, the tip of my pyramid is peacemaking. It's got some elements there, but it's not super strong yet. That's how I understand my spiritual development. I haven't done a great deal of mourning recently. At least I don't think so. Actually, it doesn't really hurt anymore because I've kind of gotten to the point where I accept that I make many mistakes. Yeah, so the mourning I do, I think I still do it. I realize I make mistakes, but I don't really care anymore because I've just come to the idea none of my mistakes are very surprising to me anymore. So I'm making some progress. I don't know if it's as rapid as it was a year or so ago. Yes, it becomes much easier once you start this process. And I'll say a few more words about the kingdom of heaven. For the ancient Christians, the 7 deadly sins weren't like legalistic deadly sins that, like, if you do this bad thing, you receive this punishment. For them, they talked about passions, and that sinful people are controlled by their passions. They aren't genuinely in charge of their own person. They are slaves to feelings like worry and lust and greed and other negative feelings. And so they aren't genuinely like their own person. They don't decide for themselves what to do. They have a feeling and they can't control the feeling, and that feeling dominates their whole person. The kingdom of heaven is when you are in a state of being where you are in control of your own person. It means that even though bad things happen to you, you don't get overly upset about them. You can still think clearly and be yourself. You aren't consumed. You don't become your anger when you're angry. There's something inside of you that doesn't move. And that is the coolest part about this, that I have noticed after I made some progress in this, that there is a part of me that very rarely moves. Of course, I haven't achieved what Christians would consider to be perfect holiness yet. So from time to time there is, I do move from time to time, but it's very infrequent and only happens when I experience something that I've never experienced before. I don't know how to deal with it. But when I have, I think I should probably end the video soon, but for issues that I deal with on a regular basis, I seem to be pretty good at being peaceful with them. And it doesn't take me long anymore to figure out how to deal with new situations. It's taking less and less time. But anyway, so I think I'll end the video there. I don't think there's anything else I need to say.